School board meeting before.
Psychic, I kind of
Psychic.
knew.
Yeah. Nice. My name is Donna Burns. I'm actually the parent of 3 kids in the school district. I have a senior, a sophomore, and an 8th grader. And they are all in the marching band, among other activities. And I'm actually the new band booster president. And I know later on the agenda, there's an item about the band trailer that we need to replace. The current trailer we have does not pass inspection anymore, and as it is, we can't even haul all of our equipment. So the band has, let me get this wrong, 120 members or so with the instrumentalists and the guard units. It's not just the marching band in the fall, I know that's what a lot of people see, but we actually have winter programs. Some of my daughters are involved in the winter percussion group, and there's a guard groups too, so that the band activities occur all year, and with the winter programs, we still even use the trailer. And actually, all of our equipment doesn't fit in the trailer we even have. The size is too small, so we actually rent a Penske truck for each time we actually go when the band actually performs, whether it's a competition, so anytime we have the amount of equipment. The equipment's actually obviously pretty large when you look at the entire front ensemble. If you've ever seen the band at the football game, we take a lot of square footage up there on the sideline, and so we have the other trucks. So I know there's the agenda item on getting some funding from the school district to purchase the new trailer for that. I know we have been doing some fundraising. We have money in the band account to do some of that. We've actually sent out a sponsorship letter to get sponsors to help us fund the trailer. And we have $1,000 already pledged for sponsorship towards the cost of the trailer. And I was actually talking with Brandon Markosik today too, because his father had helped fund the last trailer about 10 years ago. And again, given us money that from his account. So I know Brandon was looking at, Mark Markosik was looking at that today to see if he could get some additional funding for us.
Thank you.
Okay.
So normally, this is board comments and we don't engage in dialogue and questions, but because this is kind of a new issue and I think there were questions, I do want to open it up to any board members who might want to ask her a question because she is the president of the band boosters, if you're okay with that.
That's fine.
Well, Mr. Helchey's here, if you don't mind me speaking. I've been talking with Mr. Bob Brown, and we were looking at the quotes that came. From what I understand, the specs that you have now is not the specs that you need for the trailer. Am I correct in saying that, Mr. Helchey?
Yeah, that's fine. Mr. Brown is here, I believe.
Right, he's right
We
here.
actually met with Mr. Helchey probably for over an hour today in my office, had conversations about the different specs of the trailers and exactly what Jim, the marching band, was looking for. And I think we've kind of narrowed it down to those specs, and I do know that Mr. Brown provided Mr. Helchey with some guidance and some additional information. Phone calls were going to be made, I believe, today.
Yeah, we do have 2 quotes. We're working on a few other quotes. The 2 quotes we have, there are some spec differences which cause the price difference. So we need to clarify some things with those 2 quotes between those 2 companies. Mr. Brown is working on a 3rd quote. But in my discussions with Mr. Brown, we are reconsidering the size trailer that we had originally thought when Mr. Brown and I had originally had this conversation last summer, when he informed me that our current trailer would not pass another year of inspection. So we are taking a small step back to reevaluate the size trailer that we need. Mr. Brown's concerned that the size that we're currently looking at, that we currently have the quotes for, will not adequately hold everything without still causing us to rent an additional truck. So even bigger. Yeah, perhaps slightly bigger, due to when this current trailer that we're using now was, I don't want to be too long-winded, but was purchased in 2005 when the band was a much smaller organization, and the equipment, the electronics were a lot smaller. There weren't electronics used in the activity. Now it's almost a requirement to use electronics in order to be heard over the size of the band we have. So we're including 2 gigantic speaker carts, 2 sound carts, keyboard carts, things like that take up a lot of space that simply don't fit in the size trailer we have anymore. Mr. Brown requested that we look at a fifth wheel style trailer rather than a bumper pull, just for ease of maneuvering for the drivers. So we looked at a 38-foot trailer, a 38-foot fifth wheel trailer. We currently have a 28-foot bumper pull trailer. Mr. Brown's concern is that the 28-foot bumper pull is a 28-foot box. The 38-foot fifth wheel is only a 30-foot box with the extension over top of the top. So we're really only gaining 2 feet of linear space in the back of that trailer and about a foot in height. So without really thinking about how we're going to build out the inside of that to maximize that space, we have to look at perhaps going slightly longer in order to be able to fit everything in that one space to save the marching band. What was that number that Mary said?
Yeah, so we spent $2,000 in 2018 between the two programs, and last year we spent $2,500. And that was just the cost for the rental. That's not all the extra gas, everything else, we have to refill it up.
That's the cost for renting the Penske
That's just
truck.
the cost for renting the Penske truck, yeah. So it's about
The additional
$400
truck.
more in this last year than it was the year before.
We're forced to rent the Penske truck because 3 or 4 of the instruments that we need to use for the students do not fit in the trailer, in the current trailer, the size that it is.
All right, we're all looking at a quote here, I think everybody at the board has, for 8 by 38 gooseneck coupler Eagle car trailer. Is that, which
That's from Carmack.
which version of what you're speaking, is that the fifth wheel?
Both of the quotes that I believe you have in front of you are the 8 by 38 gooseneck enclosed trailers. The quote from Wendell H. Stone Company is the one that I'm trying to get redone with some different specs, because it does, for example, the triple 5,200 pound axles. The other quote that we have has 6,000 pound axles.
The one I have in front of me is from CarMate.
Okay,
It's
yeah,
a
so
6,000 pound axle.
So the CarMate, the Smouse truck.
This would be more in line with what you're
That would be
looking
more in
for.
line with I think what we're looking for.
All right,
Should we
'cause
go
the
with
total price tag on that is $21,000.
Yes.
I know you mentioned that the boosters have some money available. Do you possibly have $21,000 to buy a trailer? Is there any way that that's a feasible goal if the board should decline to throw in money? So at this point, I think there's a resolution to,
Well, I think I'm gonna be looking for a motion to table that, given the
Well, I mean,
the
just-
information when we get to it. but-
right.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like for a booster club, it seems like a very high figure in a very short window, because it also has a build time of 9 to 10 weeks.
Which is one of my biggest concerns right now. I don't want anybody on the board to think that we have been putting this off until the very last moment. This has been something that we have been discussing for months since Mr. Brown brought it to our attention. We started setting money aside. We started allocating some funds and cutting our expenditures in some other areas. I don't personally know the fund balance of the boosters.
We checked last night, we just put a large deposit in from our winter show, but we have $28,000 in the main booster account. And there's actually other money in a student account, the students own from their own fundraising.
So, I mean, is the number there that we could buy a trailer ourselves? Yes, it is. However, that depletes our entire, shall I call it a general fund, to provide other things to the students throughout the year that we need. That's our operating budget for, marching band specific needs such as instrument repairs and purchasing new equipment and things like that. So should we have to pay for the entire trailer ourselves, it's going to greatly hinder what we're able to do.
And we actually still are incurring expenses right now for the upcoming marching band season. So we won't start getting, we'll get some income in a little bit in May, mostly in June from DCI. And then the students start putting their part of fair share in starting in July. And we actually get like $100 payments every month from the students from July through October. So we actually sort of upfront a lot of the money that the students fund. And we have the big craft show we do in November is a big fundraising for the current band season. So that's actually after the season's over. So that's part of what that fund balance sits for, is we actually are funding that stuff as we go, and it sort of just keeps recurring because then the winter programs are starting, and so we're always outlaying money up front. Mr. Hochschi's already put in the contract for the show music and everything else, so we've already paid money from that fund balance. So it's part of it. So we could pay some of it now, but it'll be a little bit more challenging for us to balance the ins and the outs for when we need to pay bills.
So maybe we can touch base again, and you could come to the May meeting, and maybe we'll have an answer then on the revised quotes, and maybe we'll have an answer from Representative Markosic.
I'd like to make maybe
and
just
business
one
managers.
suggestion,
Sure.
is while you're looking at other quotes, if I have this correct, the size of this trailer actually requires the district to buy a truck specifically to pull this trailer.
That was a recommendation made to me when Mr. Brown and I first began these discussions about the new trailer, and we talked about needing, and he understands that we rent that Penske truck, and he understands that we need a bigger trailer. And he made the recommendation that we look at a fifth wheel style trailer for ease of maneuverability and parking in some of the tight spaces that we go to. Some of the schools that we visit aren't large and equipped to handle large trailers, even the size that we have now, making it difficult for the drivers. So he suggested that we look at a fifth wheel, regardless of the size, especially if we went bigger, to make it easier on them. And he did mention at that time that it would require them to buy a different style
Right,
trailer.
and I think what I'm trying to allude to is the truck that we're looking to replace with was it F-350? It needs to be replaced within the next couple of years, so that's an expense that I think we're willing to incur. But the difference between replacing it with the same style model and the upgrade to the 350 to pull this size of a trailer is around $20,000 in difference. That's 10 years of renting a Penske truck. That's probably about the life of the trailer to begin with. So can we maybe looking at a smaller price, smaller trailer, continuing to maybe rent the Penskes, or we look at maybe buying a box truck for the district? You know, just some different options financially to maybe bring the cost down. And
Another one of the problems for us with renting the Penske every week is reliability of the rental companies. We have many weeks where and Charles Chase is here, he's the one that drives the Penske truck for our winter programs, has repeatedly shown up at various locations, and they don't have the truck that we reserved. They don't have one with a lift gate in order to lift the instruments up, things like that. I end up on the phone on a Saturday morning when I'm trying to spend time with my kids, arguing with people at various rental companies. And then also finding parents to drive them. The district provides maintenance workers to drive the truck with the trailer, but we have to provide somebody to pick up, drive, and return the Penske, which is sometimes not an easy thing to do when you're
I'm
talking
curious,
about
Mr. Brown, do
parent
you have at least one driver that can back up a 38-foot trailer? Oh, yeah. Okay. It's not an easy task. Anybody else have questions?
I'm sorry. The only other thing that I would say to Mr. McIntyre's comment is, I understand the extra cost of the additional of the different truck of the F-350 versus the F-150, but I don't want anybody to get the idea that truck would be attached solely to that trailer and used only for that purpose. That truck would be a regular district maintenance truck used 4 seasons, 365 days.
It would, but we don't require an F-350 truck
I-
if we don't buy
I
your
understand
trailer.
that. I understand that it would be an upgraded because of this trailer, but I think that this trailer our current trailer is 15 years old. It was purchased between the 05 and 06 school years, so 14, 15 years old. And I think a new trailer is probably going to, especially this style, is going to last us a lot longer than the 10 years or than the 14 years that this one did, or at least as long, especially if we build it out on the inside correctly.
I'm just going to intervene here. Talking to Mr. Schott earlier, would it be correct in saying we're not going to help, okay? I mean, my hope is that we do, is to table it or pull the resolution and then ask the board to put out for bids to advertise. Which is the best way to handle it, because you're saying we need 3 bids.
One of the problems we ran into with these amounts, and looking back when the previous trailer was purchased, the district purchased a trailer because it has to be titled in the district's name. We insure it. We also pay to have it inspected for that. So with those funds that were donated last time, I was able to go back through in our financial records and determine the exact date, the amount paid by the district at that particular point in time. So In a similar situation, we would have to actually make the purchase of that. So when I see the amounts, even with the updated quote here, $21,088, any item that's over $20,600 is required to be bid. Now, this would be contingent upon us not potentially being able to find a vendor that may be on CoStarz or one of the other pre-bid purchasing networks that are out there. No guarantee that we could find that. So basically what we would be able to do, and let's say maybe even in the next couple of days, okay, everyone's in agreement in terms of Mr. Brown, Helchi, the band, that we have a particular set of specifications that will be correct for that. By being able to authorize the approval to advertise for bids, we can start the process immediately and make it hit the street and advertise, and then be able to come back to the board and say, okay, we've identified the particular trailer, we've identified the lowest responsible bidder at this X number of dollars. So then we can talk about in terms of an exact dollar amount of a trailer we're talking about, because conceptually tonight, we can't do that. Even with what we have, we don't have the apples to apples type of thing for it. So that would be my recommendation, to be able to just provide administration the ability to formally advertise and come back with a good quote in the required amount of time, which is 3 weeks. So it takes a little bit of time, so we'd like to start that process as soon as possible.
Okay.
How much you paid for the trailer in '05?
I have it.
Who didn't know that?
$9,000.
And I think it was,
Mr. Charlie, if I'm correct, the
It's
entire
$9,000,
balance
he
of that
told me.
purchase was donated by, I believe, Representatives Markosic and Logan. So that wasn't an expense from the boosters or from the district, correct?
sure, $9,337. That was made back on, we actually cut the check on July 11, 2006. The Gale Trailer Sales 28-foot Hallmark van trailer for that. The only thing we were unable to find, I was able to back into this from a fixed asset schedule, but we actually disposed of all of our records after 7 years. So we were unable to go downstairs in the basement and actually find a backup to see exactly, in terms of how that was financed for that. So, but I was able to at least determine the amount, and the district actually did make the purchase, which makes sense since it's titled in our name.
Maybe in the minutes, there may be an exhibit.
Okay, I think that you have our commitment to just, continue to follow this issue with you. You have a commitment from the board, the business manager, the facilities to help you with the right quotes, and we're gonna work through this with you, and we're gonna stay in touch, and we'll reconvene on this issue next month.
I'd like to thank Dr. Short and Mr. Brown for meeting with me today and discussing all of this, and all of you for considering helping us. There's not really a whole lot of precedent, because it's not something that happens every couple of years. But it's something that benefits a very large organization, like Donna said, over 120 students. So, and it's something that goes with us a lot of places. We're committed to a Bands of America contest in Johnson City, Tennessee, this fall. So it goes a long way with us, and it says Gateway real big on the side. We usually represent fairly well. So
Great, we appreciate that.
thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the board on agenda items? State your